Winter has certainly been living up to its name this year compared to recent years, and it looks like we still have some more winter weather to come. But how have we done so far as winter weather is concerned across the area? Well, December, I don't need to tell you, right? It was really cold, so it averaged about 5.3 degrees below average. The average temperature for the month was only 33.8 degrees. January, no picnic either. Of course, recently it's been super cold. The average temperature for January being about 30.2 degrees. That's running 2.3 degrees below average. Now, snowfall-wise, we've done pretty well this year compared to recent years. For December, we had over 7 inches of snow. The average would be about 5. And January, of course, with that recent snowstorm, 13.9 inches for the month, when the average should be about 8. So average up to this point should be about 12.2. We're already up to over 21 inches of snow, and the seasonal average is up to about 29 inches of snow. Last year, we only had 12.9 inches for the entire season, so we're really on track for a about average snowy winter here. All right, and you can blame the polar vortex for a lot of this. Of course, we've talked about this a lot. The polar vortex being the culprit, being the fractured state, or what we call the weakened state, where it sort of breaks off into little pieces. And when it does that, the door kind of opens up, the Arctic air flows right on down across the eastern part of the country. And if you've been following temperatures, again, the whole eastern half of the country has been below average quite some time, while the west has been pretty mild, relatively dry, but certainly pretty mild. A lot of the snow has not fallen across the ski areas out west, so they're kind of hurting there, while it's been a really good ski season here in the northeastern part of the country. All right, so Groundhog Day, when the groundhog sees a shadow, that means it's 6 more weeks of winter, if you believe in this stuff. And if it doesn't see its shadow, that means it's an early spring. Well, the groundhog seeing a shadow means we'll have 6 more weeks of winter. Again, that's a little rodent making this forecast, but let's talk about what could be reality, because as we look at the groundhog statistics here, started back in 1880s, 109 forecasts for 6 more weeks of winter, 20 forecasts for an early spring, but the groundhog was only right 39% of the time. So we do a little bit better here. Why? Because we're going to put some science into this and tell you why the groundhog prediction is actually going to be right, because I think we're going to see more of winter weather as this polar jet stream stays to the south because of this fractured polar vortex, which is going to continue at least, I think, into the middle part of February before we're going to get a little break. So moving forward, again, it's going to stay pretty cold for a while. We still have La Nina in play as well. That hasn't changed at all. Almost matching that polar jet stream to some degree, so it is going to keep its position, bringing somewhat drier than average conditions to the south, although they recently had a pretty good storm there, and wetter than average in the northwest. But the storm track is what we still have to watch, because these storms will be coming in from the west, and the big question always will be, do they redevelop on the coast? Or do we get a storm that comes out of the Gulf of Mexico and up the East Coast? I think the pattern is susceptible to that. The question is, how close to the coast does it get? And again, what type of rain or snow situation do we have? All right, the NOAA 30-day outlook here showing below average temperatures up north, so it really hasn't changed, right? That's about right. And a milder than average forecast across the southeastern states. They have us about average. Again, I think below average really through at least the first half of February, and then starting to see a little moderation after that. Wetter than average conditions across the Great Lakes region and the Ohio Valley. We're almost on the edge of that too. Drier conditions down in Florida, and still wet across or above average precipitation, northern Rockies into the Pacific Northwest, but they could really use that snow in some of those ski areas, which we're not really going to get. All right, so let's look ahead as we go to our forecast moving forward. So it's still going to stay very cold, I think, below average temperatures, and fairly below average temperatures too as we head into the middle of February. I mean, we should be seeing temperatures climbing into the low and middle 40s, and we're going to be struggling to get above freezing or into the 30s much of the time. Temperatures should return to average or even a bit above as we go to later February, and certainly I think as we head on into March. La Nina, that's still expected to stick around for a little longer, but probably start to fall off and disappear by the time we get on into early spring. All right, so it looks like we still could have some more snow in the forecast here, this cold pattern that exists, and that's also potentially a setup for some nor'easters, so we'll have to see how that develops. That still, though, depending on the track of the storm, could bring that little snow-rain battle for New York City and the coastal areas, kind of like what happened with that storm in January, that little snow, sleet, freezing rain type situation. But if we keep getting on this snow path, we're probably going to be getting close to average snowfall by the time the season's over. That'll be up around 29 inches. Well, spring's just around the corner. It'll arrive Thursday, March 20th at 9:35 in the morning. That's the vernal equinox. equinox. At that point, we have sort of equal day and night, and the spring forecast probably is going to end up about average as far as temperature is concerned, and I think it's going to start being a bit of a more drier pattern by then, so we'll be talking about slightly below average precipitation. So hang in there. Winter still has a ways to go, but it's always good to think ahead to spring.